We here at Odyssey Gaming love some theories. Until now we've been solely focusing on Mass Effect themed theories, but today we thought we'd do something a little different, this time focusing on a long-standing mystery in the Dragon Age series, and much like the murder on the Nexus, we are going to play detective. Hi, this is Rima and Ash from Odyssey Gaming, and today we'll be looking at Dragon Age's most mysterious character, Sandal Feddic, and look at some possible theories of who or what he is. And please be aware of spoilers throughout this game series for this one. And before we start, we might as well say, Ash, do you know anything about what we're going to talk about?
No.
No?
Not in the slightest.
Right, okay. So I'm going to try and make it as easy for you as we can. I'm going to talk about a bit of lore before we start. And if there's any point you don't understand anything, just stop us and go, because there's probably viewers who probably also don't understand, because not everyone's as familiar with Dragon Age lore as other people.
So I am the representative of the viewers today.
Pretty much. Anyone who isn't aware of Dragon Age.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So who is Sandal Feddic? Right. So he is this very lovable character that's kind of seen throughout all three games. And you meet Sandal and his adopted father, Bodan Feddic, when you're traveling throughout Dragon Age 1, Dragon Age Origins, and you come across them when they're being attacked by Darkspawn and you save their lives. They are travelling dwarven merchants who are very, very thankful for your help. And then they later show up at your camp willing to kind of help you out by just selling you things, and they're just very cute. So if you ever play Dragon Age Origins, you'll love them. We learn from Bodan that his son Sandal was actually adopted when he found him abandoned in the deep roads, and he then treated him like a biological son, taking him in and taking him in on his travels, and he's kind of raised Sandal since then. Sandal doesn't seem to have, I guess, he's not got the strongest mental capacity. He doesn't say very much. He does tend to kind of have a very childlike personality, and his main tagline is he just screams, "Enchantment!" every so often. He doesn't say very much. He's quite slow, but saying that, he's very, very proficient in enchanting and making runes. So he's, like, extremely proficient in doing that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's also claimed that that Bodan tells you that they were approached by the Circle of Magi, to take in Sandal to basically train him and also study him, because they consider him a savant in actually making enchantments. So that kind of tells you how amazing he actually is at doing this. And you also hear in Dragon Age 2, when you're wandering around, from these Carta dwarves that possibly they have been looking for someone who looks like Sandal, who's thought to be the bastard son of a royal dwarven family called the Edican. I don't know whether I'm saying that right, but the Edican are the royal family, and that's where all the royal family have come from. And these dwarves seem to think that Sandal is possibly the bastard son of one of these people, and that his mother was possibly actually a human or an elf, so he's not possibly even fully dwarven. The only other thing we really know about Sandal is that he does make various appearances throughout the game. He's in Dragon Age Origins, he is in Dragon Age 2, and then he is also in Dragon Age Inquisition in the Trespasser DLC. Though he doesn't show up, you do see an Easter egg of him. And this weirdness around him, there's a lot of like weird quotes and his powers and abilities, which we'll explain in a minute, but people have started to theorize that he's actually the Maker, basically God, in the Dragon Age series.
Bit of a stretch, isn't it?
Well, I've got some stuff to tell you.
Okay.
So we'll go with that first, okay?
I'll listen.
Okay. So what are his special abilities? So I've already told you that he's really, really good at enchanting things, and that is probably the most important skill he has. He is incredibly good at enchanting, creating runes. He can enchant armor, weapons, all that kind of stuff. And Bodan, his father, seems to theorize that it's probably because he was exposed to a high amount of lyrium down in the deep roads at some point, but he's not sure why he's like this. I guess I want to do a little detour. I don't know whether you know, but dwarves are more resistant to lyrium. So you know what lyrium is, right?
I do know what lyrium is, yes.
Yeah, so dwarves are highly resistant to it. That's why they're so good at mining it. They don't gain as much, like, lyrium sickness when they're mining it, things like that. However, the downside to that is they don't dream, and they don't have a really good connection to the Fade, which means they cannot become mages. The strange thing about Sandal is, not only do you see him being able to enchant, which isn't completely tied into being able to use lyrium, he also does dream, which is unusual. We've not come across a dwarf like that yet. So it's really odd. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
He's seen visions, or he's dreamt. It's not really clear because he doesn't really articulate that well, but he seems to have seen visions, possibly of spirits as well. And he also tends to have a really, really strong ability to just protect himself. So in the middle of, or to the end of Dragon Age Origins, you come across Sandal on his own in the middle of a room with just tons of Darkspawn dead. He's kind of bloodied, like he's got blood all over him, and there's just Darkspawn dead around him. In Dragon Age 2, he goes missing in the Deep Roads and you go looking for him. And again, you come across a very similar sign. He's standing on his own. There's Darkspawn all everywhere around him. Nobody else is around. There's even an ogre like frozen in like time or ice. And all he says is, boom! And then he hands you a rune. It's just so strange.
Is he saying boom to hand you the rune? It's like, boom, here you go.
I don't know. He's just like, boom! And then he hands you a rune and it's like... there's no context. He's just superiorly powerful, and you never see it happening, but you always come to an aftermath of it. In Inquisition, in the Trespasser DLC, when you're roaming around the crossroads and you go to the Shattered Library, you come across a camp that seems to be made by Sandal, because you find his enchanting gear. You find a journal that all it says in it is enchantment, 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 enchantment. And you find a Qunari soldier speared through and into the wall next to the camp. You don't find Sandal, but that's what you find. It's just so strange. So he seems to be incredibly powerful, but we've not actually just seen it like on screen yet.
I'm betting there's a lot of people that wish that we had seen it on the screen.
Yeah, really, really do. It's also kind of suggested that he's been in touch, or he's seen Flemth, and that she's taken an interest in him, because in one point in Dragon Age 2, you can go keep speaking to him. He's in your house. He comes to your house once you actually get the Hawk estate, and him and his dad kind of serve you there. And every time you speak to him, you have little different conversations. And one of the conversations is, he states, the old lady is scary. She has a scary laugh. And that's kind of indicative of Flemth, who is normally quite a foreboding elderly witch lady. And she does have that really creepy laugh. That's quite prominent, isn't it? So
yes,
there you go. And one of the weirdest things that he has done is there's a prophecy that Sandal kind of lays out in Dragon Age 2. And you're speaking to him and he's in his like really jovial, childish tone, just like laughing away. And then suddenly the tone completely changes. It's almost like he's in a trance. And he ends up stating, one day magic will come back, all of it. Everyone will just be like they were. The shadows will part, the skies will open wide. When he rises, everyone will see. Now, does this sound like it?
Who's
says
he?
It? So, you know the events of Dragon Age Inquisition.
I do, yes.
Right? For most of it, it does sound like he's prophesizing Solus coming back and creating the breach in the sky, in the sense where he says that one day magic will come back, everyone will see, the shadows will part, and the skies will go wide open, and when he rises, everyone will see. And it's almost sensing this fact that Solus will come back, he will open up the breach in the sky with his actions in Dragon Age Inquisition, and it will lead to the fact that everyone will kind of see the truth behind why the elven people had their fall as they did. And the end of the Trespasser DLC, basically revealing Solus' plan to basically destroy everything. So,
Ooh.
In Dragon Age 2, Sandal, this very unique little dwarf, comes out with this. And then as soon as he's done with that, his dad's like, what is up with you? Like, he's basically like, oh, I've never heard Sandal say this before. And then he goes, enchantment? After that? Like, he's almost been snapped out of the trance.
I like that. It's just like, I say all this serious stuff and then... Enchantment.
Yeah. And at the time, you as a player playing Dragon Age 2 had no idea what this meant, right? Like, no idea. But then when you play Dragon Age Inquisition and specifically the Trespasser DLC, you're like, oh, right, okay, he was talking about this. How very odd. So they had that foreshadowing in Dragon Age 2 to talk about this.
That's kind of cool.
That is very cool.
I like that.
It's very cool by BioWare to have done that.
And I'm assuming that's something that could potentially bleed into the next Dragon Age as well. Because I'm assuming going by, because I've played Inquisition, I've got DLC, haven't played the DLC still. But assuming that being the ending of Trespasser, then I'm assuming that just runs into the next game.
Well, yeah.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. It makes me more interested to play the DLC now.
Yeah. and come across Sandal somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, his little journal. Enchantment.
Well,
he felt the need to journal that, apparently.
yes, very important.
I'm going to talk about some other figures that are very similar to him, in the sense that have come across in a very unique way. So Sandal is very unique in the fact that he has appeared in 3 games. And that's very unique. But he didn't appear in Dragon Age Inquisition, but he was there. There's a presence of him. And there's only very few other characters that do that. There's Liliana, who's there in all 3 games, but she's not kind of linked to this theory, because she's not really shown to have any weird magical abilities like that.
No,
and the other person is Flemth. Flemth is there in all 3 games, and she's prominent in all 3 games. And Flemth, like Sandal, has the ability to kind of prophesize. And again, when you're playing the game, you didn't have a clue that what she was doing. You just thought she was spieling off something. And it isn't until you get to Inquisition you realise she actually was giving you a prophecy. So in Dragon Age 2, when you play as Hawk, you can re-encounter Flemth a few times. And the second time you encounter her, she'll come up to you and basically say, "We stand upon the precipice of change. The world fears the inevitable plummet into the abyss. Watch for the moment, and when it comes, do not hesitate to leap. It's only when you fall that you learn whether you can fly." So does this conjure any, thoughts in your head of what this could be in reference to?
Not really. Because,
that's fair enough.
Having not really played the first game because the controls really annoyed me, and having basically completely avoided the second game, I only played Inquisition, so a lot of this is lost on me.
So this is actually a reference to a mission in Dragon Age Inquisition called Here Lies the Abyss, when you are basically storming Adamant Fortress and trying to stop the Wardens. And there's that scene where basically you stop that horrible mage that's basically creating blood sacrifices and murdering loads of Wardens, and you, Hawk, and whichever other Warden you're with, either Alistair or what's the other guy called? I never play with the other guy. The other guy. Someone will remind me in the comments. You fall into basically the Fade, and you basically fall into the Abyss. And that is a mission where, spoiler alert, as I've already said, you can either sacrifice Hawk at the end, or you can sacrifice the Warden, and you can basically save yourselves and exit the Fade. And the mission itself is called Here Lies the Abyss. So she's basically calling out, she's basically telling Hawk that in the future, dude, there's a time where you might actually fall into the abyss, and there might be a possibility that you may need to sacrifice yourself.
Can I just point out that just someone who in my head seems like really resplendent, just saying, "Hawk, dude, seriously,
bro,
watch out for the future because something's gonna happen, brah." Okay, so it's just like, yeah, okay. If I'll be Hawk, I'll be looking at her and thinking, "For real? You do this?" So yeah, interesting. Right.
And again, in Dragon Age 2, you have no idea what this means. There's no context to what that is. It's just a really weird kind of statement. And it can also be a reference to some of the Chantry teachings called about the Abyss, where it states, "Here lies the Abyss, the well of all souls. From these emerald waters doth begin anew. Come to me, child, and I shall embrace you. In the arms lies eternity." And it's basically a line about dying and taking your place next to the Maker in the afterlife, basically. So she's done a 2-prong reference there, and she's basically telling Hawk, man, you're gonna die at some point in the future. There you go. Dude.
Bruh. Good die, man. Good die.
So that is Flemth, basically. Okay. She's very similar to how she is that Sandal is. She prophesies something in Dragon Age 2, and she's got a very big interest in him, seemingly. So there we go. So that kind of takes us on to the next section. I know I'm barreling through lore here, but we know that Flemth has the soul of an elven god from one of the Evanurus Mythal inside her. You played Inquisition, you must know that. Yes. And we know that Solus is Fenharal. They're both elven gods in some sense, and they've been kind of walking among us all this entire time. And this got me thinking, well, clearly the elven gods are important to the Dragon Age world, that they're not just in the past and left there. Possibly are more of them kind of lurking around this world and affecting it, because Solus had such a big impact in Dragon Age Inquisition, and Flemth had such a big impact from Dragon Age 1 and 2. is it possible that they're kind of like playing with fate a wee bit? So I thought I'd maybe show you or talk about the different gods and what they all did, and kind of the story behind the gods. And not only the elven gods, but also the old gods that are kind of worshipped by Tevinter as well, because there's also a possible link between the two of them as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of like lore coming up, so just stop me if you don't understand anything.
I'll try and keep up.
Right, so there are in total 9 elven gods, including Fenharal and Mithal. And they were obviously Fenharal the Dreadwolf, Mithal the Great Protector. Then you got Faladin, the Friend of the Dead, Dirthamin, the Keeper of Secrets, Andruel, the Goddess of the Hunt, Silas, the Hearthkeeper, June, the God of Craft, Gilnan, the Mother of Hala, which are those gazelle creatures that they really like, and Elgernan, the God of Vengeance, and he was the leader of the pantheon of the Evenurus, basically. So those are your main gods for the elven gods. Then you had the old gods, which were also, they were 7 gods, and they were thought to be, basically they were thought to be the first men to have entered the Golden City in the Fade. And they somehow some people think they got corrupted, and that's how they became the souls of the archdemon. So every time an archdemon comes back, you get a blight, and they're normally got a soul of an old god. So the 7 old gods are, and I'm going to butcher these names by the way, Dumat, which is the dragon of silence and the first archdemon that came in the first blight. Dazakel, the dragon of chaos and the archdemon of the second blight. Toth, the dragon of fire and the archdemon of the third blight. Andaral, the dragon of slaves and the archdemon of the fourth blight. Earthamel, the dragon of beauty and the archdemon of the fifth blight, which was Dragon Age Origins. Then there's Razakael, the dragon of mystery, and that's not appeared yet. And Luzakan, the dragon of night, which has also not appeared yet. So those are the 7 gods, the old gods. So we've got the Evenurus and we've got the old gods, and they're thought to be separate. If you believe in one, you don't tend to believe in the other, in a sense.
Right.
But there is a long-standing theory in like the Dragon Age community that think that the Evenurus are actually the old gods. Now, I'm not going to go huge into it because this might be a video for another time, but just to give you some context for this theory that we're talking about now. What happened was, and this is the main kind of story from Trespasser DLC. You learn that Solus was kind of disillusioned with the Evenurus because they weren't treating the elven people accordingly. He thought they were being mistreated. So he started like a mini rebellion where he gave them sanctuary and tried to protect them. But he was kind of pushed over the edge when Mithal, who Flemth has inside her, was murdered by the other Evenurus. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. He was done. So basically what he did was he created the Veil and separated the Fade and the Waking World, which used to be one. And that cut off the elven people's tie to magic and basically destroyed the elven empire. He kind of regretted this, but what he ended up doing was he then banished the other Evenurus into the Golden City and kept them away from the people because he was so angry at them. And that's the state the world was left in, and that's why we have the Fade, and that's why we have the Waking World, where magic is kind of separated.
Okay.
Right? So, some people theorize that because we know that the old gods, there's 7 of them, and we know that they are kind of in the Golden City and they were corrupted, and, well, it's now called the Black City once they corrupted it. And we also know that the 7 Evenurus were banished by Solus. Is it possible they were one and the same? So we had the 7 Evenurus that Solus was really pissed at. He banished them, and then now they come back as basically old gods and corrupt archdemons and create blights. So are they one and the same in this world? So that's just a little bit of context there for you. And it's quite possible because there's the correlation between the numbers 7 and 7 is there. There's also the story tends to also have a little similarity of like where they ended up and the lore and things like that. And some of them also have some strange attributes that are similar. So like June, the god of craft, their main ability also is utilizing fire. And you've also got a dragon of fire, you know, like, so there is correlations between the two groups. So could possibly they be related?
Okay.
And I think the last thing we need to talk about is the Maker as well. Because the Maker is the other like main god figure in Dragon Age. So the Andrastian religion, there's so many religions, but the Andrastian religion, which is the main religion, believes there is one major creator. And they created the Fade first. And then what they did was they created the world, the Waking World, and Thedas. And then they created the veil to basically separate these two worlds because they didn't want the creations in the Fae to become jealous of his love of the waking world. And that's it, really. There's not much more to that story. Oh. The Andrastians believe that once everyone believes in the Maker will come back down to the world and make it into a paradise. And it's very simple. It's not as complicated as the other religions. So those are the main gods, basically, to kind of help tie into this theory. So this is the fun part. I'm going to tell you some of the possible theories of what I think Sandal is, and using all this lore and all this evidence that we've talked about, we can come up to some kind of decision of what we think he possibly is.
Ooh.
Cool?
Yes.
Right. So, is he just a mage? We know that Sandal can dream. He can utilize some form of magic in a sense that he can create runes, and he can certainly protect himself. He possibly isn't fully even dwarven. He might be half human or half elf. Is it possibly that he's just the first dwarven mage and we just never encountered one before, and that's why it's so weird? Right, that's one.
Okay.
The next one, it could be, is he actually the Maker like people think he is? Is he actually the god of everything? And there's not a huge amount of evidence to say he is, but he is super powerful. He can prophesize things. He's in every story. He seems to be implanting himself in each story. Is he just a reincarnation of the Maker, or basically a physical version of the Maker on the world, just witnessing his creation? The next theory is he an Evanurus? We know that Flemth has the soul of Mithal. We know that Solus is Fenharal. They're so prominent in the story. Flemth has an interest in Sandal. Sandal seems to also have some of the same abilities as the others. We also know that he's gone into the crossroads through the alluvions, and he seems to be able to kind of go around them quite easily, and that's not so easy for someone who isn't more astute to magic. So, is it possible that Sandal contains or is a old Evanurus god and he's come back, and he does have the ability to craft, so like June, the god of craft? He can somehow wield lightning, fire, frost through his runes like Elgardan. So is he actually one of the pantheon of elven gods in his return? A reincarnation.
Okay.
And in the same sense, is he an old god? Is he got the soul of an old god inside him? So we know that Kieran, Morgan's child from the first game, he was born with the soul of an old god using the ritual during the 5th Blight. Is it possible that Sandal went through the same kind of experience? Somehow did he get a soul of an old god implanted into him? We know that he comes from possibly dwarven royal blood. And in that royal blood there is Warden history and there's also Paragon history. So there is a sense that he could have come from a very magical background, but also he could have been his family could have been involved in the Blight at some point in the past. So is it possible that somehow an old god spirit is inside him? That could also explain why Flemth is so interested in him, because she's also very interested in Kieran's soul as well. And there's also a quote that Sandal makes earlier on saying, "The big tower in the lake is scary," just randomly, again, as he does. And his dad is like, "Oh yeah, well the gallows are scary." And in Dragon Age 2, in Kirkwall, there is those gallows where basically the bad mages are basically held. And it is a big massive tower. But the image of a big tower in a lake is also very similar to what the Golden City is meant to look like. It's meant to be like a set of towers inside over a lake. And for an old god who was trapped there, or even an elven god that was trapped there, it could be seen as being scary. So, okay. And lastly, the last theory is Sandal like Cole from Dragon Age Inquisition? Is he a spirit manifested into being a physical form? Now, Cole was somehow a spirit, turned into a physical form when he kind of broke through the veil to kind of see someone in need. He kind of ended up taking up all that emotion, and he's not fully, in a sense that he's not fully aware or reformed to like social norm. And also he does have the ability to kind of sense as well as prophesize things, as we see in Trespasser, where he even reaches through, I know it's an Easter egg, but he reaches through, I guess, dimensions and prophesizes things from Mass Effect. Okay. It's quite odd. So, is Sandal also just a spirit, and he's just somehow managed to break through the Fade, and he's just come back here, and he's now basically wandering, trying to find a purpose for himself? So that's it. Those are the main kind of things I think he could be. But your thoughts now. I've done a lot of talking. My voice hurts.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely something up with him. So when it comes to these theories, I tend to be very realistic about them. I look at the more realistic evidence that's like been shown to us. Obviously, there's not a lot of that here, but there are instances where, like you said, Sandal, is it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sandal's been like appeared in a room, or he's there in a room. You turn up and he's just got like darkspawn everywhere. Clearly, he's killed them.
Yeah,
clearly he's like used like some sort of mental mind power and just gone, yeah, you're dead. So clearly he's a very strong
individual.
Yes. And clearly he's got obviously stronger abilities and maybe more stronger minded than we all thought. Because obviously that's not the initial impression we give him when we first speak to him, because he can only say about 3 words. So that's kind of interesting. I don't think he is the Maker. I don't think he's the Maker.
You don't think he's the Almighty?
No, I don't know. I'm going to rule that out straight away purely because no. Just no.
No.
That's why it just doesn't seem to make sense to me that he is the one and almighty of Thedas. So I'm just like, no. It doesn't make the most sense to me. What does make the most sense to me is the fact that he does seem to be the first dwarven mage. But I think his power is very clearly underestimated, because he clearly has very strong power in one regard or another. And because of his, I suppose because of his way, like he doesn't speak a lot, he only says certain words, but maybe being like that, maybe not being able to like converse properly and all that stuff like that, allows his mind to focus on the skills that he is good at, like the enchantments, like the runes, and obviously the magical abilities
like
and stuff
Rain
like
Man,
that.
isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So because he has these like obviously these issues like socially and on the outside. Nobody knows what's going on the inside. So on the inside, he's thinking, okay, well, I'm good at this, so I'll hone all my skills on this. And yeah, maybe nobody knows that he is like the first dwarven mage. So yeah, that's kind of my put on it. I think personally he is the first dwarven mage. I think there's more evidence to support that than any other of the theories. But I also think, kind of add my own little bit onto it, that I think he's a damn sight more powerful than anyone realises.
Possibly.
So I do like these kind of things where, and it happens in films and TV shows quite a lot as well, where like these kind of minor characters that are in the background and appear like very rarely, they end up being like more important to an overarching story, bigger picture kind of thing. One particular example I have in my head is a film called The Bone Collector, which is a favourite film of mine with Denzel Washington in it, and it's a whole thing about a murderer. It's like a thriller movie, and it's like a murderer who takes like a bone as a thing and sends it to the police, and it's the whole like follow my clues thing. And spoiler for The Bone Collector, it's a really old film, so it's like 1990s, but I'm going to ruin it for you now. But it turns out that one of the characters you see at the beginning of the film, it turns out it's one of his medical team that is that's the murderer. And you see him right at the beginning of the film. He's a very nice guy, and there's no reason to suspect that he is the murderer, but obviously he's there. You've seen him right at the beginning of the film, and it comes to the end, it's like, oh, by the way, yeah, I killed all these people. So, and he's just like, whoa. So not quite the same in this regard to the Dragon Age, but I like that kind of trope of there is someone there that potentially could come to the forefront, maybe in the next Dragon Age game, where they're going to have a much larger role or a much more impactful role than they had previously. But BioWare and the writers on Dragon Age are kind of just sowing the seeds for this small character just in the background, a cute character, a fun character, but maybe he's about to have his day, because clearly he's more powerful.
Yeah, and his whereabouts are unknown at the moment, because the last place we know he's been is in the Shattered Library. And the Shattered Library is basically at the crossroads between the Fade and the Waking World. It's a really weird realm to get to. You kind of need to use the Alluvians, and those weren't really unlocked until Trespasser. And somehow he's been wandering through there. His father's not with him, as far as we can tell. So how he's managed to get in there, we don't know. What he's doing in there. And also in Dragon Age 2, it's also said that his dad's like, oh, well, the Empress of Orlais wants to speak to him. So the Empress knows who he is. And it's not really made, like, known that he's, like, massively known in the world or anything like that. But the Empress of this big, massive kingdom is like, oh, come and visit me in my palace.
Well, yeah,
so
this
he seems
is
to be
like,
infamous, but he seems to be
like,
infamous without being infamous. It's really odd.
Yeah, that's another point I was going to bring up as well. Like, these important characters, maybe not so much to the games and the direct stories in the games, but in the overall arc in, like, lore and, you know, the whole world of Thedas and Dragon Age in general, these important characters all suddenly think, I need to speak to this person. Because they clearly see something in him. And it's just like, why? If they can see it, why can't everybody else? Because maybe they're just normal people. You know?
Well, so that is Sandal. And basically, those are some of the theories that I basically managed to find, or we kind of worked out, regarding Sandal Feddic and who or what he could possibly be. And it's still a mystery, because we're probably never... I didn't even know whether BioWare are going to pull that trigger and reveal it in Dragon Age 4, or just gonna keep him being like a weird Easter egg that we're gonna have in every game until the last ever game where we find out he was behind it all.
Turns out he was the maker and we were all wrong.
We were all wrong. But if anyone else has any theories about what Sandal could be or any thoughts on us, please let us know in the comments below or tweet them at us as usual. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and please share this video to help the channel grow. Thank you so much for watching and bearing with us as we went through all the lore. And what else can we say other than enchantment, I guess?